Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Perdue, and I am a nerd. And I don't feel very much like a nerd right now because we are having extreme technical difficulties. We don't have any internet, and so we are connected to our virtual desktops through my iPad, which I'm pretty good at doing because that's what I do when I'm out on the road. But Mary Jo can't really control my screen, and Leanne is sitting in the other room with her hands twiddling in her lap because she can't even see anything. So we won't have a humble moderator today. I will get to do the thing I like to do best, which is micromanage, because I have to drive for Mary Jo. So this is the ultimate fantasy of mine, to be totally micromanaging everything she does without her having any say. But today we are going to talk, oh, and by the way, you are at the Tabs3 virtual user group meeting from Attorney Computer Systems. And today, in November of 2013, we are talking about version 17. Shh, don't tell anyone, because it's not really even official that we can talk about it until December. I think we had to take all the people in STI that are in our mailing list out so we could just send the announcement of what the topic would be for today. Hopefully we're not being monitored by anybody, but we're going to go ahead and talk about it. We're going to show you, we're going to attempt to show you, or at least mention to you, every single thing that is changing or being enhanced or being added to version 17 from a Tabs3 and accounting software standpoint. So without any preamble, I'm going to tell you that you can ask questions, as you always can. I don't even have the handy-dandy little thing that I usually use to show you what the question process looks like. But over on the right-hand side of your screen, you've got something that has some buttons on it. And one of the buttons, if you can't see the question place where you would type questions, one of the buttons looks like an arrow that points to the left. If you click that, it'll bring the question box into focus, and you can type a question. We will attempt to monitor them without Leanne humbly moderating things. I don't know how well we're going to do at that. You can also raise your hand. There's a button that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upward in front of it. You can press that button, and hopefully I will notice. Remember, it's all me here, and we will unmute you and let you ask your question. Now, Mary Jo, can you say something? We want to make sure that Mary Jo can even communicate.
Can you all hear me? Hopefully that you got ready for me to call.
Okay, actually, let's do this. Let's have you tap into line 2. Hang up line 1, Mary Jo. Tap into line 2. There you go. Say something.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me now?
Okay. This is so much fun.
Okay.
So, we are going to talk about Tabs 3, and I think I am the first person to talk. I'm going to talk about split billing. It used to be called split fee billing, but that wasn't really accurate, because now, and that you could before, you can split expenses and advances. They changed the name to split billing. They have added an undo split billing feature, which is huge. In the old version of the software, the version that people are currently on, 16.2 and earlier, you would split, you would put all your time into one matter. You would have predefined how the split was going to work. You know, half of the fees go here, half of the fees go there, a third of the expenses go here, 2/3 of the expenses go there, however it worked. You'd put your time into this master matter, you would split it, and when you split it, it was split. So you didn't split it until you were absolutely certain that it was going to be ready to be split. There is now an undo split billing feature. So just like being able to undo a final bill, you can now undo a split. So if you need to, you can pull it all back together, make some edits, do something, do whatever you need, and then split it again. Now I'm going to go into a matter in Tabs, and I am going to get to the split screen.
You're in sample data.
I'm in sample data. Thank you, Mary Jo. I'm not even in the right data. I'm going to go back out here and press the magic button here. That's the wrong practice.
It has been a morning, let me tell you.
This is exciting. This is really cool. Now I know how some of our customers feel when they're intimidated by the lack of technological cooperation. we're going to sign into our system. This is Attorney, because we're on version 17, and that's where we're going to play today. We're going to go into Tabs. We're going to go into the Client Manager. We're going to pull up Purdue Law, that infamous Purdue Law offices. We're going to go into the client screen. You could have gotten here straight through the client icon. And we now have split billing right here. It is not a separate program anymore. And when you set somebody up as being split, you take one of the matters you're going to split, and then you go into it and you define where you're splitting to. You can split into the same matter, so we can split 10336 into 10336, and you define how much of the fees, expenses, and advances are going to be split. And then here's some of the new stuff right here. You can split the hours and then calculate the amount. That's new. It used to be that you could only split the amount, and what that meant was that if the if the rates were different for the two clients that were splitting the matter, you were only splitting the remainder result. You couldn't do that. We now have the ability to split cost credits, split non-billable zero amounts. We can split units and then calculate amount with cost, just like we can over here with fees. Okay? Enough about that. Mary Jo's going to talk about a new feature in Generate Statements.
I'm just going to remind Paul that today we're just doing a quick overview, and we're going to go into these topics in more detail in some future sessions. So if you didn't catch all that, don't worry, because in the next few months we're going to be breaking apart each one of these and going into some very good detail on that. So we're just trying to give you a heads up of what's new. So the next thing is in Generate Statements, they have added the ability to be able to change on the fly the email template. You used to be able to do that for the statement template, but now if you want to send reminder statements and use a different email template, they now have that you can just choose whichever email template you want to do when you're generating statements, which is really cool. The next thing, we're going to go to General Ledger. And so, Paul, if you can get us over to General Ledger.
I'm headed there right now.
They have changed some things with month end. They're doing away with the necessity to advance your month and your year. You can still now store unlimited years of journal entries. You're not limited to just 3 years anymore. You can define a close date to ensure that any journal entries from a prior period isn't altered. And if you're a manager, you can still get back in there and do it, but other people cannot go change things that they used to be able to. Also, the GLS clients, there's no need to archive clients anymore. At the end of the year, we used to train that way. Now, if you're not on 17 yet, this year you're still going to want to do that. So you will archive your main client and name it something, you know, the 2013 data or whatever. But in the future, for 17, you won't have to do that anymore. And then there is new firm-defined date restrictions for which journal entries can be added or edited. So those are all coming as well. So
the bank reconciliation is easier to cancel. If you've ever tried to, well, first off, you don't have to advance the month anymore. But it used to be that canceling a reconciliation was a requirement to advance the month, and it was difficult to figure out how to do it. Now it's easier to do. It's more intuitive. It's not going to be nearly as much of a problem as it used to be. We also have added the ability to reconcile credit card accounts. If you wanted to reconcile a credit card account like you reconcile a bank statement, you used to have to set up your credit card account as a bank account. Now you can set it up as a credit card account and reconcile it even though you haven't set it up as a bank account. So that's kind of neat.
Chart of accounts, totally revamped in version 17. And all my accounting people out there, yay for us. The chart of accounts is now easier to manage. You can drag and drop accounts to reorder them into different groupings. So if you create a heading account, it'll automatically create the totaling account, and it will let you go ahead and drag and drop accounts right into that grouping so that you can total it. No more worrying about what sort sequence it is or the those floating accounts that get out there. They've given us that ability to drag and drop and make our chart of accounts look how we want it to look on our reports. Wonderful feature. Also, we have the ability to mark accounts as inactive, which is huge if you all have tried to delete an account from that you don't want to have show up anymore and there's activity and you can't do it. So being able to mark it inactive, very big. We added a new credit card account, which Paul talked about, that you can reconcile. We've also automatically added corresponding heading and totaling accounts, which we just told you. You can just group those things in there.
So you won't have mismatched headers and totals in it.
Correct. No more mismatched headers and totals, any of that. They added a separate detail and summary report options for each account. So when you're in there, you can have its own sort under the Report Options tab. You can tell it what you want for the detail and for the summary. And then you can designate accrual accounts for reporting purposes, which is nice if you are doing the accrual. And then they've increased the account description. Are you ready for this? From 30 characters to 50. So you can now get your, hopefully, you don't have any descriptions that are longer for those accounts than 50. But yeah, 20 more characters to play with. On that same subject here a little bit with account information, they've added a new account information window. So I'm going to wait for Paul to get there.
I'm going.
You right-click on the actual account and you click Account Information. This is where all those balances are stored. So you can see that. You can see the budget amounts. You can see, and I think, Paul, if you right-click on the Michigan one, we will actually get some totals and things in there.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I had some notes on my infrared that he doesn't have, so I think we're doing pretty good. He's driving all right.
Here, yeah.
He's driving pretty good here.
I'm pointing with fat fingers on an iPad on a touch screen. It's really quite a, let's see, M comes F.
Sales Tax Payable Michigan, down
Michigan, yeah.
the one that's right at the bottom there.
There we go.
So if we right-click on that and choose account information, we'll actually see some balances. So here you can see the balances there. You can actually sort different columns, which is cool. You can say 2013, 2012, whatever you want to do there. Budgets, if you go to the Budget tab, you can actually sort or set your budget amounts, and again, in the different things. You also can do your journal entries and see all the journal entries that are associated with this, and you can select either a range up here that's already predefined, or you can do a custom range. So you can see all the journal entries that have hit this account right here and find them right away under one screen for that account. I mentioned budgets just briefly. You can define and maintain budget amounts for multiple years, which is good, and you can define a budget for next year without having to close this year, which is really nice too.
Awesome.
So, Paul.
Where are we?
Journal entries.
Oh, journal entries. Okay. Trying to keep 8 things going here. Let's see. If we go into journal entries.
Kind of fun watching him jump, just so you know.
And I'm going to pull up an existing entry, our AT&T bill, okay? This is the journal entry screen. No longer are there fields. You have different lines to represent the different parts of the entry. No longer do we have the ability to take things off a batch accidentally. The batch has been totally removed. So if you come in here and you want to add something to this journal entry, maybe you want to change the amount that was expensed against phone bandwidth to $100 and then take the remaining $328 and put it someplace else, you're not going to get that separated. The batch is now the same. Another thing, if we take this and do change it to fat fingers typing here, let's change it to 100.80 because that's all I can do without looking weird. And then we go down here and we tab down to the blank line. Look at that, 248. That's the remaining amount. We don't put the numbers in, it does. If I change this amount to, let's say, I guess I got to put in an account first. I'm not going to do that. If I were to change this, it would create a new line with the remaining amount. No longer is it possible, and I take this, I mean this as a challenge. If anybody can find a way to get a journal entry out of balance, we'd like to hear about it because gone are those days. We also will see that the description field here has been, wait for it, increased from 40 characters to 120 characters.
Woohoo!
Yeah, that's pretty exciting for those of us that have tried to describe what's going on in a 40-character entry. We've improved the integration with tabs, accounts payable, and trust accounting. There's fewer manual journal entries. And you can enter journal entries for the future months without closing the current month first. That's brand new. So not only do we not have to close the month, but we can now enter future journal entries and not have to worry about that. And let's see, reports. Reports are no longer limited to 2 years. Now, of course, it's as your data grows, we've always been limited to 2 years. So when you get to the end of this year, if you don't get up to 2013, I'm sorry, if you don't get up to version 17, you're still going to close this year. But if you do get up to version 17, then you will not have those journal entries drop off. So now you'll have 3 months or 3 years worth of reporting data. Easier to include, exclude accrual figures. An account can now be defined as accrual. It's not just certain accounts. You have control over what's accrual and what's not. And then when you print reports, you can tell it whether or not to include those. And you can optionally select to include commas and cents at the time that you run a report. It's not something you set up for the system as a whole. It is now something that's defined for each report as you print it with defaults defined the way you want them.
I'm going to talk about reoccurring entries. So all of you who have put in those reoccurring entries and then you get to the end and or when you want to actually post those reoccurring entries and you hit, post them and it posts all of them. And you only wanted to post half of them because it's not due, the other half isn't due yet. Well, now you can select which reoccurring entries to include at the time of posting. There's also some enhanced reoccurring entries window. It ensures that you can only have balanced entries again. So they've really moved to have everything be in balance before you can post it. So that's great. When you're importing journal entries, we used to have something called post-ASCII data program.
What does that mean?
And that would bring in all of your, whatever,
payroll.
Your payroll or any of those kinds of entries in. And they've renamed it to import journal entries, which just makes a lot more sense. All items in that GLS ASCII file are now checked prior to importing them so that you cannot bring in unbalanced entries. If there's any errors that are detected in that file, no journal entries will be made. It won't even let you do it until the errors are corrected, and it will not delete that file. It'll still be there so you can go correct it and then bring them back in.
I like the old way better. Let's bring half of them in and then tell us there's an error.
Yeah, no. And then delete your file. So
and
you
then
can't
delete
go
your
do
file.
It. Post-Pensoft payroll, people, that has also been improved. It's now going to check those payroll entries before you bring them in. If there's any errors, it's not going to make any journal entries, and it won't be deleted before you bring it in. So again, if it's coming in from Pensoft or if you're coming in just from an ASCII file, you now have that feature in place with version 17.
Awesome. A couple miscellaneous things. Update notification. This is true in all programs. It's kind of system-wide. You can now simply click on Help and check for updates. It's no longer hidden under Internet Resources. And when it finds an update, it's going to go right into updating for you. So if you're a manager, you have this check for updates option. You can download it, and you can install it all from the same place. You don't have to download it and then go out to Windows Explorer and run something. There is also a new critical update feature that will pop up a message when STI releases an update that it feels is critical and should be downloaded immediately. If you've been with STI for any period of time, at some point you've probably gotten an email saying, hey, we discovered this problem, which probably does not affect you, but here's the scenario, and you should go download these programs. That whole series of notifications has now been brought into the program so that when you as a manager start either of the modules, it will simply warn you right away, hey, there's something you should do right away before you let anybody else into the software. You should go download this and update it. And then, of course, you can designate which users get notified of the critical updates and which are allowed to check for updates.
The PracticeMaster limits, when you're adding new fields into under file maintenance there, has been increased from 410 fields to 435. So
is this the PracticeMaster users group? We never talked. We forgot. We should have only. You guys just got some advanced information that was really meant for the PracticeMaster users group.
Whoops.
Oh, well.
Go ahead, Paul.
Go ahead. Receipt allocation by invoice. if you in Tabs have had the software for a long time, you may have a situation where this box is not being checked automatically. This box needs to be checked right here, receipt allocation by invoice. If it's not, it creates problems in how the system's able to allocate receipts, which is, of course, what lawyers are all about, divvying up the money. STI has changed this so that it will always default to being checked, and if you don't want it checked for a certain matter, you would uncheck it. Don't ask me why you would not want it checked. You always do. So that's been improved because it was a problem for some older firms that have been running the software for a long time before they made it default to being checked. They were kind of in a position where they were stuck. New matters would sometimes get opened without this checked, and that's been fixed.
I have new help improvements. If you are clicking the help button or pressing F1 from any report preview window, it will now take you to the appropriate help topic for that report that you are viewing. So you can just click help or F1.
I think before it took you to report writer help or report, just generic report help.
And then similarly, if you click help button or press F1 when you are on a list tab, and again, this is in PracticeMaster, so I'm going to I'll put it out there, but it will take you to the appropriate help topic there as well.
Okay. And finally, some items that have been discontinued. If you were using the PracticeMaster briefcase, don't update to version 17 because it's gone in version 17. I think they found that there were 14 people still using the PracticeMaster briefcase, so they got rid of it. It was very expensive to maintain that functionality. QuickBooks integration, still there for Tabs, always will be probably. But for some reason, there was QuickBooks integration between PracticeMaster and QuickBooks. Why anyone would ever need to integrate QuickBooks and PracticeMaster, I have never been able to figure out. I guess nobody else figured it out either because it has been removed. Starting with version 17, the DOS cost recovery software programs are discontinued. For those of you who are older than a certain age, you remember what DOS is. If you don't know what DOS is, don't worry about it. The programs to do cost recovery that run in DOS are no longer being maintained. And also the WCNVASCV.exe utility program is discontinued, and it's being replaced with the TB device. I think basically what they're saying is if you need to get stuff into tabs like photocopy, oh, there's an old word, copy expenses, phone expense records, anything that you're importing into tabs, TB device is the program to do it. In the olden days, there were lots of different cost recovery programs, some of them running in DOS, and they're all gone. They're all gone, and now it's TB device. So there you have it. All of our, say again?
Next month.
Next month. All of our version 17 items for Tabs 3 and the accounting software in under 25 minutes. Now, let me check real quick. There are no questions. At least I don't think there are. I'm not very good at this monitoring and humbly moderating thing. I don't do anything humbly, so attendees, let's see if we can find out if anybody has their hand up. It doesn't look as if anybody does. Okay, good. No questions, no hands up. Next month, we are going to have what we would call a year-end recap. We're basically going to, it's going to be kind of a free-for-all. We're going to take questions from anyone on anything. We will be doing this at all three of our virtual user group meetings, the PracticeMaster and Tabs 3 virtual user group meetings, which, by the way, next month they are going to be the third Monday in the month, not what would be the last Monday, which would also be the fifth Monday. Because of the holidays, we're doing the Tabs 3 and PracticeMaster virtual user group meetings just before the Christmas week. We're going to have a free-for-all. We're going to talk about everything that's happened in the STI world over the last year of 2013. We're going to talk a little bit about version 17. At that point, we should know when it's going to be released for the masses. I will tell you now that if you want any of the features that you've seen described today, or any of the ones that you may see if you're attending our PracticeMaster virtual user group meeting in a few minutes, you can send an email to beta, B-E-T-A, at tabs3.com, and you will be able to see, you will be able to request that you get the beta version. Now, they are about to put this out there for new releases. I can't say when. And so therefore, you're not getting something that's being tested anymore. The testing is pretty much done, but it is still in a beta phase. So if you are interested in not advancing your year at the end of 2013, or not advancing your month anymore, or you do a lot of split fee billing and you'd like to play with that, or any of the other things that we've talked about today, simply send an email to beta@tabs3.com and request the update. One last thing, Leanne is going to make a note, hopefully right now, that when we send these notifications that the recorded version of this webinar are out there to all of you who are attending right now, we will include the version 17 What's New list. So look for that. It'll be what we worked off today. So it's pretty much everything that we covered, but in a written form. So you'll be able to study it and see what's in there.
And as Paul said, with your questions, start getting those now and start emailing them to us right away so that we can prepare our list of what we're going to answer that day. So if you have a question and you want us to cover it in the meeting, send us an email. If there's time, we will take questions live, but we'd like you to have those ahead of time.
Yep, send them to paul.purdue, like the school, not the chicken, P-U-R-D-U-E, paul.purdue@attorneycomputerssystems.com.
And I believe it's the 16th, December 16th.
December 16th. There you have it.
We'll talk to you then.
Okay. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.